Welcome back to another journey into the shadows of the Wasteland. I'm glad you're here. Today, we're diving into the most compelling fan theories that have emerged from the Fallout universe, the ones that make you question everything you thought you understood about the world after the bombs fell. Some say Vault Boy's thumbs up is actually teaching you how to measure your proximity to death. Others believe every protagonist you've ever played might not be human at all. There are whispers of a radio station that predicted real-world tragedies years before they happened, Morse code messages that somehow saw through time itself, and beneath it all, evidence suggesting the apocalypse wasn't an accident of war, but a calculated business decision by the very corporation that promised to save us. We're going to explore the theories that true fans debate in the darkest corners of the community, the ones that add layers of horror to an already terrifying world, the connections that once you see them, you can't unsee. And if you genuinely enjoy this kind of dark storytelling, consider subscribing and liking the channel, but only if it truly resonates with you. I need to tell you something before it's too late. Before the radiation catches up with me, before whoever's been following me finally finds what they're looking for. I've spent years in the Wasteland piecing together things that don't add up, connections that shouldn't exist, patterns buried so deep in the rubble that most people walk right over them without noticing. But I noticed. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. My name doesn't matter anymore. What matters is what I found, what I'm about to share with you. You know Vault Boy, right? That cheerful bastard with the thumbs up and the wink. The face of Vault-Tec plastered on every piece of propaganda they ever made. We all thought it was just corporate optimism, that pre-war American can-do spirit frozen in a cartoon smile. But it's not. It never was. That thumbs up isn't encouragement. It's a test, a way to measure your distance from death. I learned this from an old holotape I found in the ruins of what used to be a military installation. The voice was barely audible through the static, but the words were clear enough. If you hold your thumb up to a mushroom cloud and your thumb covers it completely, you're far enough away to run. You might survive. But if that cloud is bigger than your thumb, well, they told soldiers not to bother running. You're already dead, you just don't know it yet. Think about that. Vault-Tec's mascot, the symbol they use to sell safety to millions of people, is actually teaching you how to measure if you're in the kill zone, not how to survive. How to know when survival isn't even an option anymore. The smile isn't optimism. It's the grin of someone who knows the punchline to a joke you haven't heard yet. The wink isn't friendly. It's conspiratorial. Like he's saying, we both know what's really happening here, don't we? The Amazon show confirmed it, made it canon, but I knew years before that. I'd seen the evidence in old training manuals, heard whispers from ghouls who remembered the before times. Vault Boy was never your friend. He was a warning wrapped in false comfort. But that's just the beginning. That's the shallow end of this irradiated pool. Let me tell you about the number station. In Fallout 3, there's this radio frequency that appears under very specific circumstances. You have to kill 3Dog, the DJ at Galaxy News Radio. You have to skip certain quests. You have to destroy Raven Rock. Do all that. And sometimes, just sometimes, the radio changes. Instead of music or news, you get numbers. Just numbers in a monotone voice, followed by Morse code. Most people dismissed it as a glitch or a creepypasta, but some of us decoded those transmissions. We translated the Morse code, and what we found made our blood run cold. The numbers were dates and times. The Morse code described events, real-world events, events that happened after the game was released. One message gave the exact date and time Gary Coleman died, down to the minute. The message said, "What are you talking about? You'll be missed." That's a reference to his most famous line from Different Strokes. The game came out in 2008. Gary Coleman died in 2010, 2 years after the game shipped. Another message predicted the Deepwater Horizon explosion in the Gulf of Mexico. 9:45, April 20th, 2010. Accident in the Gulf, several dead, oil spill apparently averted. That oil rig exploded at exactly that time. 11 workers died, and initially, they did think the spill was contained. They were wrong, but that's what the news reported at first. There were other predictions too. Messages about the Queen dying, about Britney Spears winning an Oscar in 2023, about scientific experiments gone wrong. The content varied, but they all shared one thing. They were embedded in a game released years before the events they described. Bethesda denied it, of course. They had to. What else were they going to say? That somehow, impossibly, their game predicted the future? That would raise questions no corporation wants to answer. Questions about what else they might know. I've thought about this for years. tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a hoax, an elaborate fake created by someone with too much time. Maybe the dates were changed retroactively, though I don't see how. Maybe it was pure coincidence, though the odds of that make winning the lottery look probable. Or maybe something in that development studio saw through time. Maybe when you're creating a world destroyed by nuclear fire, when you're thinking deeply about apocalypse and survival and the end of everything, you touch something. Open a door that shouldn't be opened. Glimpse futures that shouldn't be visible. The Wasteland teaches you that the impossible is just the not yet explained. I've seen ghouls who should be dead still walking after 200 years. I've watched the Institute replace people with synthetic copies so perfect even their families can't tell. I've stood in the shadow of Liberty Prime while it recited propaganda and obliterated everything in its path. So why not prophecy hidden in a video game? Why not a numbers station broadcasting from a fictional radio tower into our actual world? What do you think really happened here? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd like to know if I'm the only one who feels this way. The theories get stranger from there. Darker. More personal. Let me talk about the sole survivor. In Fallout 4, you play as either Nate or Nora, husband and wife, parents to baby Sean. You watch the bombs fall. You enter Vault 111. You're frozen in cryogenic suspension. You wake up briefly to watch your spouse murdered and your son kidnapped. Then you're frozen again. Then you wake up for real, 200 years later, and you set out to find Sean. That's the story the game tells you. But what if it's a lie? What if you're not who you think you are? The synth theory suggests the sole survivor isn't human at all, that you're a third-generation synthetic, programmed with false memories, sent into the Commonwealth as an experiment. And the evidence, when you look at it, is disturbingly compelling. First, there's the question of how you survived when everyone else in Vault 111 died. Your spouse was murdered, yes, but everyone else just stopped. Life support failure, they said. But your pod kept working. Just yours. Why? What made you special? Second, you can use VATS before you ever pick up a Pip-Boy. Vault-Tec assisted targeting system. It's supposed to be a function of the Pip-Boy, a targeting computer that helps you aim. But you can slow down time and target enemies before you ever strap that device to your wrist. There's even a terminal entry in the Institute that describes improvements made to Gen 3 synths, enhancements that sound remarkably like VATS. The ability to process combat scenarios in slowed time, to calculate optimal attack vectors instantaneously. Third, there's the way the Institute treats you. Father, who reveals himself to be the real Sean, now an old man dying of cancer, lets you wander the Commonwealth. He releases you from Vault 111 to see what happens. That's what he says. To see what happens. Like you're an experiment. Like you're a variable in an equation he's trying to solve. And then there's Dima in Far Harbor. He asks you point blank how you know your memories are real. How you can be certain you're not a synth with implanted recollections of a pre-war life that never actually belonged to you. You can't answer him. Not really, because he's right. How do you know? What proof do you have beyond the memories themselves? And memories can be manufactured. The Institute does it all the time. Think about the narrative structure. You remember one day before the war, just one, the morning the bombs fell. You remember your spouse, your baby, your house, your Vault-Tec rep. But that's it. No childhood, no adolescence, no career building or college years or first kiss or anything else that makes a life. Just one morning, perfectly preserved, suspiciously complete in its details. Almost like someone designed it to be just enough backstory to motivate you, to give you a purpose, to make you believe. The game even hints at this possibility in cut content. There was supposed to be a quest called The Replacement, where you could create a synth version of your dead spouse. Bring them back as an artificial copy to be your companion. That quest was cut, but the code remained. And if the Institute could make a synth of your spouse, why not of you? Sean himself gives you another synth at the end, a child version of himself, a prototype that was never supposed to work properly. He gives you a son to replace the son you lost, a synthetic family for a potentially synthetic parent. The symmetry is too perfect. The Institute specializes in replacements, in creating artificial versions of real people. Why would their director's parent be any different? Some people reject this theory immediately. They say if you were a synth, the Brotherhood of Steel would kill you. They say you'd appear in the Institute's records. They say Father would never make a synth the director of the Institute. But here's the thing. What if Father did exactly that? What if his final experiment, his lasting legacy, was to prove that a synth could lead, could make choices, could be more human than the humans themselves? What if the whole point was to blur that line until it disappeared completely? You could be a synth and never know it. The Institute wouldn't need to keep public records. The Brotherhood might never scan you. And Father, dying, wanting to leave something meaningful behind, might absolutely create a synthetic version of the parent he never really knew. A parent who could continue his work, who could make the Institute what he always wanted it to be. I can't prove you're a synth. I can't prove you're not. That's the genius of it. The uncertainty, the question that can never be fully answered. Whether you're human or not, you still have to live with the choices you make. You still have to survive the wasteland. You still feel pain and fear and loss. But late at night, when the radstorms roll through and the rain hammers on whatever shelter you've found, don't you wonder, don't you question those perfectly preserved memories? Don't you think about how convenient it all is? How perfectly you fit into Father's plan? I do. I think about it constantly. And once you start questioning one thing, everything else starts to unravel. Every certainty becomes suspect. Every ally becomes a potential threat. Take Dogmeat, for instance. Everyone loves Dogmeat. Loyal companion, best friend in the wasteland, German shepherd who shows up at Red Rocket truck stop, friendly and ready to help, right after you escape Vault 111. He's too good to be true. Maybe because he is. The Institute creates animal synths. We know this. You can see synthetic gorillas in their facility. They have the technology. They have the capability. And Father admits he let you out of Vault 111 to see what would happen, to watch how you'd navigate the Commonwealth. What better way to watch than to send a synthetic dog to accompany you? A loyal companion who's actually a surveillance device. A friend who reports everything back to the Institute. Think about Dogmeat's intelligence. No one trained him, but he understands complex commands perfectly. He can track specific scents based on nothing but a used cigar. He never questions you, never leaves, never does anything but help. He's suspiciously perfect. And in the wasteland, perfect things don't exist unless someone made them that way. There are no other German shepherds in the Commonwealth. None that we've seen. Dogmeat is unique. Unusually clean for a stray. Unusually healthy. Unusually capable. Almost like he was manufactured recently. Like he's a prototype animal synth sent to guide you where Father wants you to go. Mama Murphy recognizes Dogmeat, says he's helped people before. Says he's some kind of legend in the wasteland. But what if those stories are planted memories? What if the Institute has been using Dogmeat or dogs like him for years? Testing their effectiveness, refining their programming, until they got it just right for you. You might say that's paranoid, that not everything is a conspiracy. But in a world where the Institute replaces people with synthetic duplicates, where an entire organization exists just to help synths escape, where you can never be completely certain who's human and who's not, paranoia isn't a disorder, it's survival. If you've ever wondered what choice you would make in a situation like this, tell me in the comments. I'll be reading them. The mysterious stranger is another piece of this puzzle. He appears in every Fallout game, shows up during combat in VATS, kills an enemy, then vanishes before you can get a good look at him. Same hat, same coat, same 40 Magnum. Game after game, decade after decade, he's there. Who is he? How does he appear and disappear? How is he in multiple locations across multiple timelines? Some say he's a synth, an early prototype that somehow transcends individual games. Others say he's not a single person but a title, a role passed down through secret means, a brotherhood of mysterious strangers who take a vow to help wastelanders in need. Still others think he's something else entirely, a ghost, a temporal anomaly, a glitch in reality itself made manifest. Nick Valentine has been tracking the mysterious stranger for decades. It's his obsession. He has notes, evidence, sightings documented across the Commonwealth, but he never gets close. Never finds real answers, just more questions, more sightings, more impossible appearances and disappearances. It's like tracking smoke, like chasing shadows that don't actually exist. Maybe that's the point. Maybe the mysterious stranger represents something deeper, the uncertainty of the wasteland given form, the unknowable made visible just long enough to save your life before vanishing again. A reminder that even when you think you understand the rules, something can step in and change them. Or maybe he's exactly what the synth theory suggests. An experiment that went so well they kept repeating it. A design so effective they've been using variations of it for 200 years. Maybe he's a synth who doesn't even know he's a synth, programmed to appear when needed, to help and then forget, over and over, endlessly, never aging, never questioning, just existing in those brief moments of violence before returning to whatever darkness holds him between encounters. I've seen him 3 times myself. Each time I tried to talk to him, tried to figure out who or what he is, but but he's gone before I can form the words. Just a gunshot, a body hitting the ground, and empty space where he stood a second ago. The wasteland is full of impossible things. After a while, you stop trying to categorize them. You just accept, adapt, survive. But deep down, you still wonder. You still want answers. I'm going to tell you about something that still makes my hands shake when I think about it too long. The thing about living in the wasteland is you learn to accept certain impossibilities as just part of the landscape. Ghouls who've been alive since before the bombs, super mutants that used to be human, towns built inside the hulls of bombed-out aircraft carriers. You see enough, and your definition of normal gets real flexible, real fast. But some things still dig under your skin and stay there. Let me talk about strength, about power, about why you, the player character in every Fallout game, can do things that should be impossible. There's a theory that the reason you're so much stronger than everyone else, the reason you can take on entire raider gangs solo, survive radiation that would kill normal people in minutes, carry enough weapons to stock an armory while still sprinting across the wasteland, is because you had protection from the worst of the radiation. You came from a vault or were frozen in time or somehow shielded from the constant background. Radiation that's been saturating the surface for 2 centuries. Everyone topside has been soaking in low-level radiation their entire lives. Their parents did. Their grandparents did. Generation after generation of accumulated cellular damage. It weakens them, makes them sicker, shorter lifespans, reduced physical capability. The wasteland has been slowly poisoning them since birth, but you're different. You're what a human is supposed to be. What humans were before the Great War turned the world into a graveyard. That's why you're special. Not because you're enhanced, because you're normal. Real normal. Pre-war normal. And in a world of the weakened and the mutated and the slowly dying, normal looks like superhuman. Think about it. In Fallout 4, you're frozen for 200 years, preserved perfectly. No radiation damage, no accumulated mutations. You wake up exactly as healthy as the day you went in. Meanwhile, everyone else has been marinating in radioactive rain and contaminated food and irradiated water for generations. Their bodies are degraded at a fundamental level. They don't even know how weak they've become because they have nothing to compare themselves to. You're not a hero. You're a control group, a baseline, a reminder of what humanity used to be before it poisoned itself. The same logic applies to other protagonists. The lone wanderer from Fallout 3 grew up in a vault, shielded, protected. The courier from New Vegas is a different case, but there's evidence suggesting something else is happening there. Something involving the think tank and old world blues, and modifications that go deeper than most people realize. Actually, let's talk about the courier for a minute, because that's where things get really strange. In the Fallout New Vegas DLC Old World Blues, you're captured by pre-war scientists who've turned themselves into brains in jars. They remove your brain, your heart, your spine, and replace them with advanced technology. And here's the thing that should be impossible. You keep functioning. You can still think, feel, make decisions, all without the brain that supposedly does all that. Some fans theorize the courier might actually be a synth for this reason. How else do you explain consciousness without a brain? But synths are an East Coast thing. The Institute, the Commonwealth, they don't exist in the Mojave in any form that makes sense for the timeline, unless the technology is older than we think, unless the science that created synths existed before the war, scattered across different facilities, developed independently by different groups. The think tank had the tech to remove and replace human organs with mechanical substitutes. They had personality reconstruction, memory manipulation, all the building blocks of synthetic humanity. What if the Institute didn't invent synths? What if they just rediscovered something that already existed? That's the problem with the wasteland. Every answer creates 3 new questions. Every discovery suggests there's more buried under the rubble, more experiments, more facilities, more evidence that the old world was so much stranger and more terrible than anyone remembers. The pre-war government was running hundreds of secret projects. Vault-Tec's experiments were just one thread in a massive web of unethical research. The FEV program that created supermutants, the development of power armor, the creation of death claws as biological weapons, Liberty Prime, the Enclave's genetic purity protocols, Raven Rock, the Poseidon energy platforms, Big MT, and those are just the ones we know about. How many more are out there? How many sealed facilities are still running automated experiments with no one left alive to witness the results? How many AI systems are still carrying out directives given by people who died 2 centuries ago? I found a bunker once, way out in the wastes where no one goes anymore. The door was still sealed. The power was still on, drawing from some fusion reactor buried deep underground that might run for another 1,000 years. I couldn't get inside. The security was too good, but through a cracked window I saw movement. Shapes that might have been human once, or might never have been human at all. I left that place and never went back. Some doors are sealed for good reasons, but it makes you wonder, if that place is still running, still doing whatever it was designed to do, how many others are? How much of the Wasteland's strangeness isn't natural mutation from radiation, but the result of experiments still ongoing? Still changing things in ways we can't predict or control? The mannequins are a good example of this kind of ambient wrongness. All across the Commonwealth in Fallout 4, you find mannequins arranged in bizarre positions, sitting at dinner tables, standing in groups like they're having conversations, positioned in ways that are unsettling, deliberate, wrong. Bethesda confirmed there's no in-universe explanation. It's just the developers trying to creep players out. But what if that's misdirection? What if there is an explanation, but acknowledging it would reveal something they don't want to talk about? Some fans theorize someone is moving these mannequins, arranging them, creating these scenes, a lone madman wandering the wasteland with nothing better to do than pose plastic figures in abandoned buildings. But that doesn't track. The Commonwealth is dangerous. Moving mannequins around takes time, leaves you exposed. Why would anyone risk death to create creepy displays no one will see? Unless they're not displays, unless they're markers or warnings, or some kind of communication system we don't understand. Unless the mannequins are telling a story in a language we can't read. Or maybe they move themselves. Maybe something in the plastic reacted with radiation in ways we don't understand. Maybe they're not mannequins at all anymore, but something new, something aware, something watching through painted eyes as you walk past. I know how that sounds, but I've been in those places. I've felt the weight of those stares. And more than once, I could swear a mannequin was in a different position when I left than when I entered. Just slightly, just enough to notice if you were paying attention. The Wasteland doesn't work by the old rules. Physics gets flexible when you've detonated enough atomic weapons to reshape reality. Maybe consciousness can exist in unexpected vessels. Maybe awareness seeps into things that were never meant to be aware. Maybe the radiation doesn't just mutate flesh. Maybe it mutates possibility itself. That's what I think about late at night when I'm on watch and the darkness is too complete and the silence is too heavy. I think about all the things out there that shouldn't exist but do. All the rules that got broken and never got fixed. All the impossibilities that became mundane. Let's talk about cats, because even small mysteries tell you something about the big picture. In the first 2 Fallout games, there are no cats. Not alive anyway. Terminal entries explain that after the bombs fell, people were so desperate for food they ate their pets. Dogs survived because they're larger, harder to catch, more useful for protection. But cats, small and solitary, became meat. The species went functionally extinct on the west coast. Except in Fallout 4, set on the east coast, cats are around. Not many, but some. They survive somehow. Maybe vault populations. Maybe isolated colonies that humans never found. The logistics don't quite work, but the Wasteland doesn't care about logistics. What's interesting is what this tells us about information propagation. For years, fans believed cats were extinct in the Fallout universe. The evidence said so. The lore confirmed it. Then a later game revealed that was only regionally true. The extinction was local, not global. Information we thought was universal turned out to be specific. How much else are we wrong about? How many other facts about the Wasteland are actually just localized conditions that got mistaken for universal truths? How much of what we think we know is just incomplete information, filling in gaps with assumptions? The Fallout Bible, written by Chris Avellone, who worked on the original games, was considered canonical for years. It had detailed information about supermutant reproduction, about the timeline of events, about the nature of various factions and technologies. Then Bethesda took over the franchise and declared the Bible non-canon. Some of it contradicted stories they wanted to tell, so they retconned it, made it unofficial. Lore isn't fixed in the Wasteland. It shifts, changes, gets rewritten by whoever holds power. History belongs to the survivors, and the survivors lie. They misremember. They reshape events to fit narratives they find more comfortable or useful. Truth becomes flexible. That's why I trust physical evidence more than stories. Stories change depending on who tells them, but a bunker full of corpses tells one truth. A terminal entry written 200 years ago tells another. The bones don't lie. The data doesn't have an agenda, except when it does. except when the data was falsified from the start, except when the corpses were staged, except when the terminal entries were planted to mislead anyone who found them. Vault-Tec did this constantly. False documentation, fabricated records. The Vault dwellers thought they were in survival shelters, but they were really in laboratories. The experiments were the point. The survival was incidental. And the records reflected whatever narrative Vault-Tec wanted to maintain. Vault 111 was supposed to test long-term cryogenic suspension. Vault 81 tested disease distribution. Vault 95 studied addiction relapse. Vault 112 trapped people in a simulation controlled by a sadist. Every vault had its secret purpose, its true function hidden beneath layers of lies and official documentation. The vaults that actually worked as advertised, the control vaults, were rare. Most were torture chambers disguised as sanctuaries. Most killed their inhabitants in elaborate, documented ways. Most existed solely to gather data on human suffering. And somewhere, maybe, that data still exists. Some server farm buried under rubble, still cataloging centuries of screams. Some AI still analyzing the results, running simulations, planning the next phase of experiments it will never get to conduct because everyone who cared about its mission is long dead. The pre-war world ended, but its systems didn't. They're still running, still executing protocols, still trying to complete objectives in a world that no longer cares. That's what I think the Wasteland really is. Not a post-apocalyptic survival scenario, not a clean slate where humanity gets to start over. It's a graveyard with the lights still on. It's the corpse of civilization still twitching, still moving, still dangerous because it doesn't know it's dead yet, and we're living inside it. Making our settlements in its hollowed-out bones, scavenging its organs for parts, fighting over its remains while pretending we're building something new. We're not. We're just rearranging the debris. The Brotherhood hoards technology they don't fully understand. The Institute creates synthetic humans for purposes that barely make sense even to them. The NCR tries to rebuild the old government without realizing the old government is what destroyed everything in the first place. The Railroad fights for synth freedom without asking if synths even want freedom, or if they're just programmed to think they do. Everyone's playing out scripts written before the bombs fell. We think we have free will, but we're all following patterns, repeating cycles, acting out roles assigned by a dead world. Maybe that's why the sole survivor being a synth makes so much sense thematically, because we're all synths in a way. We're all programmed by the past. We're all running code written by people we never met, executing directives we never questioned, believing in purposes that were assigned to us rather than chosen. The Wasteland strips away the illusion of agency. You survive or you don't, you find resources or you starve. You fight or you die. Choice becomes very simple, very binary, very mechanical, human or synth, alive or dead, true or false, 1 or 0. If this story has kept you listening this far, and you want more of these dark confessions from the Wasteland, hit that subscribe button. It tells me someone out there is still paying attention to warnings like these. There's another theory I need to tell you about before we go deeper. It involves Nuka World, the amusement park turned raider stronghold. When Bethesda announced the Nuka World DLC for Fallout 4, fans immediately compared it to Disney World. The parallels were obvious. Different themed zones, a park built around a corporate mascot. Even some of the specific areas seem to mirror Disney parks. The Galactic Zone like Epcot, Safari Adventure like Animal Kingdom. The resemblance was too strong to be coincidental. But here's where it gets interesting. Disney World has urban legends, stories about the park that may or may not be true. One of the most famous involves Walt Disney himself. The rumor says his body is cryogenically frozen beneath the park, preserved until technology advances enough to revive him. It's not true in real life. Walt Disney was cremated, but the legend persists. And Bethesda, knowing this, knowing players would make the connection, decided to include their own version. John Caleb Bradburton, the creator of Nuka-Cola, is found in Nuka World. His head is still alive, kept in a preservative solution, connected to systems that have sustained him for 200 years. He's conscious, aware, trapped. He's been alone with his thoughts for 2 centuries, unable to die, unable to move, unable to do anything but think. And when you find him, he begs you to kill him, to end it, to finally let him rest. It's one of the most disturbing moments in the franchise, not because of violence or gore, but because of the existential horror. The idea of being trapped in your own head for 200 years. No sleep, no escape. Just thought after thought after thought with no way to turn it off. That's what immortality actually looks like in the Wasteland. Not glorious or powerful, just prolonged suffering. Extended awareness in a world that ended without you. Everyone you knew is dead. Everything you built is ruins, and you're still here, unable to join them, forced to watch the decay continue forever. The ghouls know this. The ones who haven't gone feral understand what it means to outlive your context, to be a relic of a world that doesn't exist anymore. Some embrace it, become historians, living memories of the before times. Others descend into madness, go feral, lose themselves to radiation and time, and the weight of too many years. There's a ghoul I met once named Oswald the Outrageous. He was a magician before the bombs, performed at an amusement park. When the war came, he survived, turned ghoul, and he stayed at that park for 200 years, maintaining the illusion that it was still running, still entertaining guests, still serving its purpose. He built an entire fantasy around the corpse of his old life, populated it with feral ghouls he treated like an audience, performed for them like they could still applaud. Madness or dedication? I couldn't tell. Maybe there's no difference when you've been alive that long. The Wasteland is full of people holding on to the past, trying to resurrect it, trying to keep it alive long after it should have been buried. The Brotherhood of Steel worships pre-war technology like religious relics. The Institute tries to recreate pre-war scientific advancement without any of the ethical frameworks that were supposed to constrain it. The Enclave believes they're the continuation of the pre-war government, the legitimate inheritors of America, even though America doesn't exist anymore. They're all Bradburton, all severed heads kept alive artificially, unable to accept that their time ended, that the world moved on without them, that their dreams died with everyone else, and maybe we're no different. Maybe we're all trying to resurrect something that should stay dead. Maybe the Wasteland keeps producing the same patterns because we refuse to let go of the old ones. We keep building nations that collapse. We keep creating weapons that destroy us. We keep fighting wars over ideology and resources and pride. The bombs fell. The world ended. But we learn nothing. We're just repeating the same mistakes with 2 centuries of decay as a backdrop. That's the most depressing theory of all. Not that there's some conspiracy. Not that synths walk among us. Not that mysterious forces manipulate events from the shadows. Just that humanity is incapable of change. That we're locked into patterns so deep they might as well be genetic. That no matter how badly we destroy ourselves, we'll always find a way to do it again. I'm getting to the end now. The parts that kept me awake, the theories that made me question everything I thought I understood about the Wasteland and what came before it. There's one that haunts me more than the others. It's about what happened to the rest of the world. See, all the Fallout games focus on America. The West Coast, the East Coast, the Mojave, the Capital Wasteland, the Commonwealth, Appalachia. We see what happened to the United States after the Great War. But the war was called the Great War for a reason. It wasn't just America and China lobbing nukes at each other. It was global, mutually assured destruction on a planetary scale. So where is everyone else? What happened to Europe? To Africa? To South America? To Australia and the Pacific Islands? The games never tell us. The lore stays silent. It's like the rest of the world just ceased to exist the moment the bombs fell on American soil. Some fans theorize that small pockets might have survived. Remote islands in the Pacific maybe. New Zealand or parts of Australia, far enough from major targets to escape the worst of it. Communities isolated enough that they weathered the nuclear winter and the fallout and the collapse of global civilization. But even if they survived, they're cut off. No communication. No ships crossing dead oceans. No planes flying through irradiated skies. Just silence. Just the spaces between where nations used to be. The theory suggests that mutually assured destruction meant exactly what it promised. Total annihilation. The entire planet reduced to wasteland. Maybe America's wasteland is relatively livable compared to other regions. Maybe we got lucky. Maybe everywhere else is worse. So much worse that nothing survived at all. Just endless stretches of radioactive desert where cities used to stand. Just dead oceans thick with contamination. Just a planetary graveyard with a few scattered survivors clinging to the least poisoned corners. We don't know. We can't know. And that might be the most terrifying part. The uncertainty, the possibility that we're even more alone than we realize. There's another global theory that connects to this. Some fans believe everyone in the Fallout universe is already mutated. Every single human, including the ones who think they're normal, has been altered by low-level radiation exposure. The changes are subtle, enhanced resistance to radiation that would kill someone from our world instantly, slightly increased strength, the ability to heal from injuries that should be fatal. These aren't superpowers. They're adaptations, mutations so universal that they've become the new baseline for humanity. You take radiation damage in the games, sure, but you can also walk through radioactive zones that would kill a real person in seconds. You can drink irradiated water and pop a rat away to clear it out. You can get shot multiple times and sleep it off. That's not normal human physiology. That's something changed, something adapted to survive in an environment that should be completely uninhabitable. Maybe there are no true humans left. Maybe the species we were died with the old world. What's walking around now calling itself human is something new, something that evolved in the ruins, something that looks like us and thinks like us but fundamentally isn't us anymore. The Vault Dwellers should be the exception, sealed away, protected, preserved as humanity was. But the vaults leaked. Radiation seeped in. Not enough to kill, but enough to change. Enough to mutate. Even the most secure vault couldn't keep out 200 years of accumulated exposure completely. So even they changed. Slowly, gradually, generation by generation, until the people emerging into the Wasteland weren't quite the same species that went in. If that's true, then the Wasteland isn't post-human. It's transhuman. It's humanity in transition, caught between what we were and what we're becoming, unable to go back, but not yet fully arrived at whatever we're turning into. The ghouls are just further along the path. The super mutants took a different route entirely. The synths are a deliberate attempt to recreate what was lost. But they're building from a template that doesn't exist anymore. They're making synthetic humans based on mutated humans, so they're not really recreating the original at all. They're just making copies of copies, each generation drifting further from the source material. There's no going back. The pre-war world isn't coming back. Pre-war humanity isn't coming back. We can pretend. We can play dress up in the ruins and tell ourselves we're rebuilding civilization, but we're not. We're building something new on old bones, something that resembles what came before but isn't actually the same at all. Let me tell you about one more theory. The darkest one, the one I wish I could dismiss but can't. It's about Vault-Tec and the Great War itself, about who really pushed the button first. The official story is that China launched first. The Sino-American War reached a breaking point and China made the first strike. America retaliated. The world burned. Standard nuclear apocalypse narrative. But there's evidence that suggests something different, something worse. Vault-Tec knew the bombs were coming. They had to. You can't build that many vaults, set up that many experiments, coordinate that much infrastructure without knowing when you'll need it. The vaults weren't just prepared for nuclear war. They were ready, populated, sealed and functional right when the missiles launched. The timing was too perfect. The Amazon show confirmed something fans suspected for years. Vault-Tec didn't just prepare for the apocalypse. They wanted it. They had a financial interest in nuclear war happening. Their entire business model depended on civilization ending. They needed the apocalypse to justify the vaults, to make their product necessary. Without the war, they were just a construction company that built very expensive holes in the ground. So what if they made it happen? What if Vault-Tec orchestrated the Great War? Not directly maybe, but through manipulation, through pressure on political leaders, through calculated escalation of tensions, through whatever means necessary to ensure that someone, somewhere, would finally launch the missiles that would end the world and validate their business plan, or worse. What if Vault-Tec launched the first strike themselves? What if they had access to nuclear weapons and used them, framing China for the attack, knowing America would retaliate, knowing that retaliation would trigger the mutually assured destruction they needed? What if the entire apocalypse was manufactured by a corporation trying to justify its quarterly earnings? It sounds too evil to be true, but this is Vault-Tec we're talking about. The company that sealed people in vaults to test how long until they turned cannibal, that exposed children to high radiation to study mutation, that locked families in virtual reality torture simulations, that conducted experiment after experiment, designed purely to document human suffering in elaborate detail. Would that company hesitate to end the world if it was profitable? Would they have any moral restraint at all? I don't think they would. I think Vault-Tec was capable of anything. And I think the evidence, when you look at it closely, suggests they did exactly what the theory proposes. They ended civilization. They killed billions. They reduced the planet to radioactive ash, all to sell shelter space and conduct their experiments without oversight or consequence. That's the real horror of the Fallout universe. Not the radiation or the monsters or the desperate struggle to survive. It's that the apocalypse wasn't inevitable. It wasn't the natural consequence of human aggression. or political tension, or resource scarcity. It was a business decision. It was capitalism taken to its logical extreme. It was profit motive weaponized and pointed at the entire human species. We didn't destroy ourselves through war. We were destroyed by a corporation's quarterly projections. We ended not with ideology or hatred, but with market forces and shareholder value. The mushroom clouds weren't acts of war. They were advertising. The fallout wasn't collateral damage. It was the desired outcome. Every survivor in the Wasteland, every struggle to find clean water or avoid raiders or build something resembling a community, all of it exists because some executives in suits decided it would increase their stock price. Every ghoul shambling through the ruins, every super mutant created by FEV, every vault dweller emerging into a dead world, they're all victims of corporate planning, products of a business model that required planetary death to function, and the experiments continue. The data collection continues. The vaults are still running their protocols 200 years later because the corporation built them to be self-sustaining. The overseers are dead, but the experiments go on. The scientists are gone, but their automated systems still catalog results. Vault-Tec won. They got exactly what they wanted. An entire world turned into their laboratory. Millions of test subjects with nowhere to run and no way to opt out. That's what we're living in. That's what the Wasteland really is. The greatest experiment ever conducted. The most comprehensive study of human behavior under extreme stress ever undertaken. And we're all participants whether we want to be or not. I found a holotape once, just laying in the rubble of what used to be a Vault-Tec corporate office. It was an internal memo, dated a week before the bombs fell. Just routine corporate communication, reminding regional managers to ensure all vaults were sealed on schedule, confirming that the event was proceeding as planned, thanking everyone for their dedication to the company's long-term vision. The event, not the war, not the apocalypse. The event, like it was a product launch. Like ending the world was just another item on the corporate calendar between the quarterly review and the holiday party. I carry that holotape with me. I listen to it sometimes when I need to remember why I'm documenting all this, why I'm recording these theories and collecting this evidence. Because someone needs to remember, someone needs to know what really happened. Someone needs to bear witness to the greatest crime ever committed. Vault-Tec killed the world. And they did it for money. That's not a theory. That's just how it is. Everything else, all the other theories about synths and mysterious strangers and who's human and who's not, they're all just noise compared to that central truth. We're living in the wreckage of a corporate murder-suicide. We're the survivors of a crime so vast that most people can't even comprehend it. They blame China. They blame the communists. They blame human nature and war and all the usual suspects. But it was Vault-Tec. It was always Vault-Tec. And the worst part, they got away with it. Every executive who planned this is dead of old age or protected in some bunker somewhere, immune to consequences. The company itself is defunct, dissolved, meaningless in a world without markets or shareholders or quarterly earnings. There's no justice to be had, no punishment to inflict, no way to hold anyone accountable for ending civilization. We just have to live with it, survive in the ruins they created, play out their experiments whether we want to or not, become the data points they spent so much time and money arranging. That's why I'm telling you all this. That's why I've been documenting these theories and connecting these dots. Because even if there's no justice, there can still be truth. Even if we can't punish anyone, we can still remember. We can still know what was done to us and why. The Wasteland strips away everything except what's essential. And what's essential is this: we were betrayed. By our own kind. By the institutions we trusted to protect us. By the corporations we thought were just greedy, not literally apocalyptic. We were betrayed in the most fundamental way possible. And now we have to live with the consequences of that betrayal forever. Every settlement built is a middle finger to Vault-Tec. Every community that survives is proof they didn't win completely. Every person who chooses to help instead of hurt, to build instead of destroy, to trust instead of betray, is evidence that humanity might be more than what those experiments were designed to reveal. Maybe we're all synths in the sense that we're all manufactured by forces beyond our control. Maybe our choices are more limited than we'd like to believe. Maybe the Wasteland is a cage we can't escape, but within those constraints, we still choose. We still decide who we want to be. We still determine what meaning we make from the ruins. That's what the theories teach us, ultimately. Not that there's some grand conspiracy controlling everything, but that even in a world designed as a laboratory, even as unwilling subjects in someone else's experiment, we still have agency. Limited, constrained, hemmed in on all sides, but real. We can still choose to see each other as human, even if we're not sure what human means anymore. We can still build something worthwhile out of the ashes. We can still matter. The sole survivor might be a synth. Dogmeat might be surveillance. The mysterious stranger might be a ghost or an android, or a title passed down through generations. Vault Boy might be teaching us how to measure our own death. The numbers station might have predicted futures that haven't happened yet. We might all be mutants pretending to be human, or humans turning into something else entirely. But we're still here, still surviving, still finding reasons to keep going even when everything says we shouldn't, still creating meaning in a meaningless wasteland, still being human. Whatever that word means now, in whatever form we can manage, that's my confession. That's my warning. That's what I needed to tell you before it's too late. Before whatever's been following me finally catches up. Before the radiation or the age or the simple exhaustion of surviving this long finally puts me down for good. The wasteland is built on lies, on experiments and manipulation and corporate murder, on questions that have no answers and truths that can't be proven, on uncertainty and fear and the slow erosion of everything we thought we knew. But it's also built on us, on survivors who refuse to give up, on communities that shouldn't exist but do, on people choosing to be better than the world that created them, on hope, irrational and stubborn and stupid as it is in a place like this. So believe the theories or don't. Question everything or accept the official story. Decide for yourself who's human and who's not, who's real and who's manufactured, who's controlling things and who's just trying to survive. Just remember this: someone ended the world on purpose. Someone designed all this suffering. Someone looked at humanity and decided we were worth sacrificing for profit and data and the satisfaction of seeing what would happen. Don't let them be right about us. Don't prove that we're just the monsters they thought we were. Don't become the data points they wanted to collect. Be something else. Be something they didn't account for in their calculations. Be the variable that breaks their models. Be human, in whatever way that means now, in whatever form you can manage. That's all we can do. That's all we've ever been able to do. Survive, choose, matter. Make something worthwhile out of the ruins they left us. The theories will keep circulating. New ones will emerge as we find more evidence, more terminals, more holotapes left by people who knew things and didn't survive long enough to tell anyone. The mystery will continue because the wasteland never gives up all its secrets, never shows you the whole picture, just fragments and implications and questions that multiply faster than answers. But that's okay. We don't need all the answers. We just need enough truth to keep going, enough understanding to avoid repeating the worst mistakes, enough clarity to see through the lies that led us here in the first place. So I'm leaving this recording, hiding copies in places where someone might find them, broadcasting it when I can, hoping that someone, somewhere, hears it and understands, hoping that the theories I've collected, and the connections I've made, and the truth I've uncovered matters to someone besides me. The wasteland is a laboratory. We're the subjects. The experiment is still running, but knowing that, understanding that gives us power, not much, but enough. Enough to choose how we respond. Enough to decide who we want to be in the face of it all. Enough to matter in ways the experimenters never anticipated. That's my final theory. The one I believe more than any other, that despite everything, despite the manipulation and the lies and the corporate apocalypse and the endless experiments, we still matter. Our choices still count. Our humanity, whatever strange mutated form it takes now, still means something. Prove me right. Prove that we're more than data, more than subjects, more than the ruins of what we used to be. Survive. But do it on your own terms. Question everything. Trust carefully. Build something worth keeping. Be human in the fullest sense you can manage. That's the real resistance. That's how we win. Not by solving all the mysteries or exposing all the conspiracies or figuring out who's a synth and who's not, but by refusing to become what they wanted us to be. By being better than the wasteland that shaped us. By mattering in a world designed to prove we don't. The theories will keep you thinking, but don't let them stop you from living. Don't let the questions paralyze you. Don't let the uncertainty turn you into just another cautionary tale shambling through the ruins. Live deliberately. Choose consciously. Matter intentionally. That's all anyone can do. That's all that's left to us. And somehow, impossibly, it's enough. This is my testimony. My warning, my confession from the wasteland. If you're hearing this, you're still alive, still surviving, still searching for truth in a world built on lies. Keep going. Keep questioning. Keep being human in whatever form that takes. The wasteland needs people who refuse to accept what they're told, who dig deeper, who connect the dots, who remember. You're one of them now. Make it count.